Hello and welcome to KCS at Home Summer Edition, Activity 2. I'm Miss Omby. I teach 5th grade ELA at Shenandoah Elementary School. Thank you for joining me today as we read about, talk about, and write about a text. Before we start reading today, I want to go over a few tips if you're having trouble with the video. These tips will work if you are watching the video on YouTube or through the KCS website. If you're having trouble hearing me, you can turn on the closed captions and you'll be able to see the words I'm saying at the bottom of the screen. If you're having a hard time understanding me, you can adjust the playback speed and it will slow down the video. If you want to pause the video and watch it in smaller steps, or give yourself a little bit more time to read a section or to think about a section, or to look for evidence before you move on, that would be a good idea too. Finally, you could ask someone in your home to watch the video with you. Often at school, when we're reading a text, we work with a partner to share our thoughts on our reading or our thoughts on the question that the teachers posed. So this would be a good opportunity for you to use someone in your home to interact with the text and talk about the text as you're going through this video. The text that we're going to read has the topic of adventurers. The essential question that we're going to be looking at with this text is who goes seeking adventure and why? The learning target or our goal for this lesson is to read our text closely to be able to explain why Charlotte wants to be an astronaut. We're going to do that through a dialogue between Charlotte and Uncle Ty. In order to show that we've been successful with that learning target, we should be able to show these success criteria. First of all, we should explain Charlotte's decision. We should also explain 2 reasons from the text that convinced her to make this decision. Because we're writing it as a dialogue, we also need to make sure that we include the proper punctuation that goes into a dialogue. Now, let's look at our topic of adventurers a little bit more closely. If we look at adventurers and break it down into its morphemes, it kind of helps us to understand the word a little bit better. The root ad means toward. The root vent means to come. The suffix ure shows action. And then the suffix er means one who. And the suffix s makes it plural. So if we put all of those meanings together, that tells us that adventurers are people who move toward action. I want you to think back to the stories that we have read in 5th grade anytime throughout this year. Can you think of any characters or people that we've read about that have sought adventure? And what were their reasons? One of the first ones that I thought of goes all the way back to Unit 1 when we read Red Kayak. It made me think about Brady. Brady didn't exactly seek adventure, but he definitely went on an adventure. Remember, Brady was asked to find Mrs. D'Angelo and Ben using his red kayak during the storm. So he definitely went on an adventure, but his reason was really more as a rescue mission. Not necessarily for his own personal thrill. When I think about people that seek adventure more for a thrill, I think about Satchel Paige. He was a baseball player during kind of a difficult time. And remember, at one point in time, he gave up baseball because he wanted to stay at home, and then decided that wasn't the life for him. He wanted to go back out on the road and traveling and playing baseball and hearing all the fans cheer for him. So his adventure seeking was more for that feeling of pride and the excitement that went along with it. If you were able to watch the KCS at Home Summer Edition Activity 1, you read the text Technology and Treasure. In that text, there were marine scientists who were going on adventures in the ocean, and their purpose was to find treasure using different kinds of technology. So theirs was more for jewels and money and treasures that were buried with sunken ships. As we read our text today, we're going to be doing some morphology work. Just like we did with the word adventurer, we're going to break some of these words down into their roots and into their prefixes or suffixes to help us get a better understanding of the word. Some of these words you may know the meaning of, but knowing the morphology will kind of help their meanings make more sense. So a couple of the words that we're going to look at involve Greek roots, where the root comes from the Greek language, or we're going to be looking at Latin roots and prefixes where those come from the Latin language. And then we're also going to look at a particular suffix, OUS, and look at several examples of that in our text as well to help us to understand the word meaning and how that suffix changes the meaning of the word. This is the text that we're going to read today. It's called Charlotte Space Travel. I want you to think about the genre of this text. What kind of story do you think Charlotte Space Travel is? When I read the title, it made me think that it might be science fiction. If it involved traveling into space and space shuttles, it makes me think it might be science fiction. But then when I looked at the illustrations, those look like photographs, possibly taken from space. In that case, it might be a little bit more informational. So we're going to have to read our text and find out for sure what genre it is. We'll come back and look at that when we're finished. Now we're going to actually read Charlotte Space Travel. I want us to look at paragraph 1, and we're actually going to read this paragraph together. Before we do, we have one of those words that comes from the Greek language, astronaut. Might be a word that you're familiar with, that you've heard before and you even know what it means, but you might be interested to know the meanings of those roots. Astronaut is made up of the root astro, which means star, and the root naut, which means sailor. So technically, the definition of astronaut is a star sailor. When we think about a sailor, we think of someone who explores the ocean. Well, in this case, a sailor is more one who explores the stars or space. As we read this first paragraph, I want you to pay attention to the reasons that Charlotte's family thinks that Charlotte should be an astronaut when she grows up. Be looking for that evidence as we read. Follow along with me, and I'm going to read paragraph 1. Charlotte loved when her uncle visited. Uncle Ty was an engineer who worked for NASA, National Aeronautics and Space Administration. He told great stories about the rockets he helped design, and he often brought Charlotte books filled with beautiful photographs taken from space. She loved technology and science, and she was fairly adventurous. For those reasons, her family kept telling Charlotte she should be an astronaut when she grew up, but she just wasn't sure. Based on this paragraph, what evidence does her family have, or does her family give that Charlotte should be an astronaut when she grows up? Right here in this last sentence, it actually says her family kept telling Charlotte she should be an astronaut. And right before that, it says for these reasons, or for those reasons. So that means that they've given us the reasons right before that. When I look at the sentence before, it says she loved technology and science. So that's one reason that they give that she should be an astronaut when she grows up. It also says she's fairly adventurous. That's a second reason. Those are the reasons that they specifically mention when they say for those reasons. However, when we make some inferences and really connect that, I think we could even underline some other evidence in here. The whole first part of this talks about Charlotte's relationship with her uncle and how she loves when her uncle visits. Well, her uncle also works in a space-related field, and she really enjoys it when he talks about the rockets or when he brings her these photographs. So she's already showing some interest in space-related things through this relationship with her uncle. As we mentioned earlier, we're going to be looking at the OUS suffix. One of our words here has the OUS suffix, and that word is adventurous. Just a few minutes ago, we looked at the word adventurers. A lot of the root words there are the same, but the suffix changes. Adventurers had the ERS, means one who or multiple people who. Now we have an OUS. The OUS suffix means full of, and it usually changes a word into an adjective or a describing word. In this case, adventurous is describing Charlotte to say that she is full of adventure. So notice how changing just that suffix changes the meaning of the word a little bit. I also want to point out here, NASA is probably a word that you've heard before anytime you read about space things in books or you see it in movies or on the news. NASA is usually mentioned. What you might not realize is NASA is a special kind of abbreviation called an acronym. And that means that each of these letters stands for a word. And that word helps us to understand more of its meaning or its purpose. So the N stands for national, the A stands for aeronautics, the S stands for space, and the A stands for administration. So that's an acronym for NASA. Now we're going to move on to paragraph 2. In paragraph 2, we have another one of those words that have roots from a different language. This has Latin roots, and it's the word exhibit. The prefix X means out, and the root hibit means hold. So exhibit means to hold out or display or show. So what I want you to think about as you read paragraph 2 is why would Charlotte be interested, or why was Charlotte interested in this exhibit? Read paragraph 2. In this paragraph, it describes the exhibit as a display of spacesuits and astronaut gear. It also says that while they're going through the exhibit, Uncle Ty talks about the various spacecrafts. She also gets to operate 2 model robot arms. Knowing what we know about Charlotte from paragraph 1, she was really interested in technology and science. Well, at this exhibit, it involves technology and science. So that's going to make her interested in this exhibit. Paragraph 2 has another example of a word that has an OUS suffix. Can you find it? Yeah, the word is various. So remember, the OUS means full of, makes it an adjective. It means it's describing a noun. In this case, various means full of very. Well, the word vary is a root that means different. So various would mean full of different. What noun is it describing? Yeah, it's describing spacecraft. So that means when Charlotte and Uncle Ty go to this exhibit, they're not just seeing one kind of spacecraft, they're seeing many different kinds of spacecraft. Now, I want us to go ahead and look at paragraph 3. In paragraph 3, the setting changes. Where the story takes place changes. So I want you to find out about that setting change as you read paragraph 3 on your own. At the beginning of that paragraph, where is Charlotte? She's on a bus. They're leaving the exhibit. She's on a bus with Uncle Ty. Toward the end of that paragraph, where is she? So she's looking out a window, but not a bus window. She's looking out a space shuttle window. So what's happened in that paragraph for Charlotte to go from a bus to a space shuttle? When I look real closely, I see right here that she drifted off to sleep. So the setting kind of changes, but not exactly. Charlotte's really still on the bus, but she's dreaming that her setting has changed and she's in a space shuttle. Now we're going to look at paragraph 4 and 5. Again, I'm going to have you read these two paragraphs on your own, and we're going to learn about Charlotte's dream. So I want you to read paragraph 4 and 5, and I want you to think about what happens to Charlotte when she's in space. When I look at these paragraphs real closely, I can see a lot of details about things that happen to Charlotte while she's in space. She's not by herself, there's some crew members with her. Um, and she's having to work on a giant robotic arm outside of the space shuttle to tighten up a loose panel. She ends up being successful with that. She eats granola, dried fruit, and nuts. She has to hook her sleeping bag to the wall so that she can go to sleep. She's feeling excited about her accomplishments, or proud of her accomplishments, and excited for the experiments that she's going to be doing. All of that happened in this dream. Now I want us to look at one more word in this text that has the OUS suffix. Can you find it in paragraph 4? Yeah, the word is nervous. Nervous is certainly a word we're familiar with. So nervous means full of nerves. Again, it's an adjective. So in this case, who or what is being described as nervous? Yes, it says she felt nervous. So she is referring to Charlotte. Now, we can also use this opportunity to kind of check and make sure we've understood or comprehended the text. Why is she feeling nervous? Yeah, it says the pressure was on. She was asked to fix this loose panel, but it's not just fix it when you get a chance. This was an important job that she needed to fix quickly for her safety and for the safety of the other crew members. So she was feeling a little bit nervous about this pressure that she had for her assignment. Finally, I want you to read paragraph 6. And in paragraph 6, she makes an important decision. What is the decision she makes in paragraph 6? We can find that decision toward the end of this paragraph. She knew for sure she wanted to be an astronaut one day. Remember at the beginning of this text, her parents or her family thought that she should be an astronaut, but she wasn't quite sure? Well, now she's made the decision that she wants to be an astronaut when she grows up. This goes very closely with our learning target and with our quick write that we're going to work on in just a minute. So when we get to answering that quick write, I really want you to think about what makes Charlotte change her mind. At the beginning, she wasn't sure. After she's had this dream, she's sure that's what she wants to do. So what happens in this dream? What happens while she's in space that changes her mind? So you're really going to be looking at paragraph 4 and 5 to be able to find out what happens that's going to convince her she should be an astronaut when she grows up. Before we get to the quick write, though, we looked at genre when we very first started this, but we weren't quite sure what the genre was. Now that we've read the whole thing, we can make that decision. What do you think the genre is? Is it science fiction? Not really. She doesn't really travel in space. Is it informational? No, we don't have any evidence that Uncle Ty and Charlotte are real people. So it really is just more of a realistic fiction text. Everything in here could actually happen, but it seems as though the author has created these characters in a situation that could be realistic, but it hasn't happened. So let's look at our quick write. As I just mentioned, this is realistic fiction, so it's written as a narrative. And in our narrative that we read, it ends with Uncle Ty waking Charlotte up once they get home. And that's where it stops. So I want us to continue. When you finish this video, I want you to continue that narrative. You're going to add the conversation where Charlotte kind of talks about her dream with Uncle Ty. And in that conversation or dialogue, she needs to explain her decision, like tell her decision that she wants to be an astronaut, and then use evidence from the text that helped her to get that decision. So remember our success criteria as you're writing that. Charlotte's decision needs to be stated in that dialogue. You also need 2 reasons from the text that convinced her to make this decision and explain them. Remember, paragraphs 4 and 5 are going to be the best place to find those reasons. You're writing it as a dialogue, so we've got to make sure that we include the proper punctuation and use our quotation marks and commas and question marks and periods and capital letters and all those rules that go with writing dialogue, that you have done that correctly. You might need an adult to help you remember those rules or to double check when you have finished. A note to students and to parents that might be watching this video, there is a quick write exemplar posted on the website. So if you need a little example to get your student started, it's there, or you can look at it once your child has finished their quick write and kind of compare it to that exemplar. The quick write is a narrative example of a quick write. So these are some other extension options that are more focused on opinion writing. Remember back when we looked at the acronym NASA? Well, OREO in this case is an acronym to help us remember what goes in opinion writing. So the O stands for opinion and reminds us to state our opinion. The R stands for reasons, to give reasons for our opinion. The E stands for evidence, where we're going to use evidence from the text to back up our reason. And then we go back to O because we're going to restate our opinion. Your opinion options are, first of all, based on the information in the text, would you like to be an astronaut? Use evidence from the text to explain why or why not. We get a little bit of information about what life might be like for an astronaut in Charlotte's dream. So based on what you read right there, does that sound like something you would be interested in or not? So your opinion paragraph, start off stating your opinion, give reasons why that would or would not be your opinion, and then use evidence from the text to support that, and then restate whether you would or would not want to be an astronaut. Another option for opinion writing, you could answer this prompt. In your opinion, what qualities or characteristics would a person need to become an astronaut? Why are these characteristics so important for an astronaut? You might be able to answer this question just using the information from Charlotte's space travel, but you might even need to do some additional research to be able to really answer that question. So this one might be a little bit of a longer writing, or maybe even an essay where you give multiple qualities or characteristics and then evidence to back those up as your opinion. So let's kind of recap what we've done today. We looked at the essential question, who goes seeking adventure and why? We addressed several learning targets. Our main one was I can read closely to explain why Charlotte wants to be an astronaut. But we also looked at Greek and Latin roots and used those to help us to determine meanings of unknown words. We also applied our knowledge of the suffix OUS to determine word meaning and to think about how it makes the meanings of a word change. And then after we read the text, we looked at some different writing tasks that you could do on your own as a follow-up. We looked at a narrative dialogue, more of a quick write following this, this reading. Or you can do some opinion writing and some other extension activities, maybe a paragraph or an essay kind of writing. Thank you so much for joining me in this lesson. Stay safe, stay healthy, and enjoy your summer. But I hope you'll join us next time for another video as we learn together. Have a great day.